All right, back at it again. All right, we're gonna do albums, assorted rock albums. I wish I could do every fucking band and have every album laid out and just kind of like everything about everything. But I don't. The best I can do is have like some pre-selected top album list just like this and sort of like you know filter them through some bullshit algorithm and then rank them out like starting in alphabetical order, rank them in terms of their letter grade. But honestly, this isn't alphabetical, is it? No, I don't know what order this is. I guess it's like somewhat random, pseudo random. Mechanically presented to be random, but not truly random. Random. All right. Anyway, let's go with these albums. These are all stuff I've seen before, for the most part, and I'll let you know if I haven't. Classic list. Honestly, this is any of these would be good. They're very. I don't know. I mean, maybe not the most. As a preliminary, I just want to say like a lot of these albums they don't have the necessarily the coolest look, and it tells you that sometimes the best music has kind of like a mid has more of like a middle of the road appearance. Like if the album cover is really bad, it seems like the album would suck. And if the album cover is really good, the album would also suck. There's like this normal distribution where all the albums that are really famous just kind of look whatever. They kind of look like somewhat decent, respectable, but not never amazing. I mean, I would say that a lot of these albums are just frankly kind of boring looking, and then the rest are just mildly interesting, which is like hardly even an accomplishment in this visually stimulated world. Even back then, there was a lot of creativity in designing these things. Movie posters are also like this. Anyway, we'll find out though that some of the best albums do have some of the best appearances or whatever designs and just imagery like throughout the album sleeve, on the back, yada yada. Okay, here we got The Clash, London Calling. Okay. I'm gonna give this a C. No, I'm not a huge fan of their modus operandi. They're like punk, but more commercial. They like, they really kind of steamrolled in. They weren't really like, like hectic Mad Max, shoot to thrill types. They were more like slow and calculated, regulatory in their process as artists. I'm gonna give it a C. I don't think it's brilliant. The songs are kind of cute. Pink Floyd has a cigar. Give it a D. I think this is probably like the third best Pink Floyd album after Cigar. Faded Away. Wish You Were Here, obviously dedicated to him. Wow, is loosely. Robert Wise has admitted this. Shine On Crazy Diamond is like the rock staple, but it's a classic prog, magisterial epic track. And Cigar is it's just a fun song. It's above par, it's super par to what you get on the wall, which is not my favorite album, but it is they did like decent work by the time the end user sees the video. Yeah, it was S, S. I mean, I never listened to like, what's so crazy was that these days, like, I don't listen to like Led Zeppelin, other tribute bands, or even Led Zeppelin, it was just one, I'm blanking, a great band, not, crazy about, imitators of Led Zeppelin style, is really definitive, and, elegant style for, some styles, but this album, like, it's almost not even Led Zeppelin, it's like a new universe still, and it's got this amazing, most of the lyrics are really Jimmy Page, some of the lyrics are reincorporated from blues singers, I believe, I can't quit you, maybe, but the, what's the song, If You're Gonna Leave Me, If You're Gonna Leave Me is a Jeremiah song, so that the new one is a like cover song, it's also one of the strongest, vocal performances, and the guitar has the most standout guitar playing on the album. This album is like the perfect foray into everything heavy about Led Zeppelin. It's not necessarily where I'd send you first if I was trying to get you to appreciate Led Zeppelin, but I think it's sort of like it defines their power in a very blatant and impressive sort of fashion. Next on the list is Appetite for Destruction. Appetite for Destruction is a B. It's got some great. It's got some truly great songs that maybe would have excellent production value, kind of later into the decades. I'm not. It's obviously the best Guns N' Roses album, bar none. It's quite a long album. I would say it's a good amount of filler there. But if you want to really appreciate Guns N' Roses, you don't have to. They don't have that many albums, so you can kind of just listen to this. All right, I'm moving it to A. It's the first A on the list. I mean, between the first two tracks, "Welcome to the Jungle," "Sweet Child of Mine," are at the A side. It's got "Paradise City," great, it's amazing. There's "Mr. Brownstone." There's quite a few. The song it's kind of a long album. And it's an excellent debut. Is it their debut? Rose's debut album, GNR Lies. Yeah, it is their debut album, and it was in 1986. It was released. So incredible 80s rock. This is like a T-shirt worthy album cover. I think I literally have one just like 5 feet away from me right now. Yeah, so it's the first A on the list. I don't necessarily like their style. And to me, they kind of represent everything that failed or like was overblown in late 80s rock. Everything that sort of fell out, charged itself off the cliff. Kind of a little too high voltage, I think, for sustaining the rock ethic for the next generation. This next album is one I don't really recognize. I think it's like Queensryche or something. Yeah, it's Queensryche. It's a C. It's a C. Like none of the songs are like really true classics, but the mood is so unusual. I think Roger Waters describes Syd Barrett's songwriting as like, it's English romanticism, but it's sort of like, but it's belated. I mean, that's the way I'd look at it, is it's belated. Like it's way past the heyday of romanticism, the golden age, like any time in the early 1800s or mid, So doing that 100 years later or plus, it is a little deranged. You do have to be on drugs, acid, whatever, mushrooms, mescaline, ketamine, whatever, any of it. I'm not sure what his cocktail was, but he did all those crazy drugs, quaaludes perhaps, right? So Piper at the Gates of Dawn is like a Syd Barrett showcase in a sense, because he was really like the co-leader of the band with Roger Waters for a long time. David Gilmour wasn't even involved, and then they just sort of brought him in as a replacement, and then he did all this amazing work on Dark Side and The Wall, and legendary guitar solos, and just work overall, top to bottom. But Piper at the Gates of Dawn is like is not like a breakthrough album the way so many of these other ones are. Like Rush 21-2112. That's a B. Um, yeah, I mean, the problem with 22-112 or whatever is that there's so many Rush albums, and this one, it has like Tom Sawyer on it, right? No, it doesn't. Which one is Tom Sawyer on? I thought this was must have been the one like after. So it's got some interesting literary connections. Just a fairly contains the sort of this English fascination that Canadians have because they were, this part of the Commonwealth. So like a bunch of the Canadian bands that are going to be a little more, highbrow, the way they write their material. Jeez. But for me, Rush was a band that sort of had good pickup scenes of the 80s, like Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures. It was a little too cerebral overall in the 70s, a little too kind of lame. I mean, it's nothing Apple, but it was just kind of lame, like kind of dweeby and like trying too hard to be smart. Like if you're trying so hard to be sound smart, and obviously you're not doing a lot with whatever you're supposed to be doing, creatively, emotionally, intellectually. I mean, you know what I mean? Like in terms of like moving the ball forward with your productivity as a seems productive. That doesn't seem like you're doing it. Could it be because it's an intriguing album? It's it does have some standout music. It's not as irrelevant as let's say like the Piper as the case is on. But it is sort of in that like intermediary camp between like very good and great. And so I think sort of maybe have a cigar is a good sort of analog to it. Even though like in terms of like the catalog for the artists, they're kind of popping out the same sequence. Piper was the later album, the follow-up, I believe. Or was Piper, sorry, not cigar. Cigar was before Dark. That's like might be it might have been before Dark 75 when it was Dark. Yeah, I was right. It's Dark 73, Dark 75, and this one is 2112 is 76, right? So it's like a lot of time to become like to like match the songwriting level of its near contemporaries and its predecessors, and Rush didn't do that until like the 80s. It's more prog and prog camp, and it is decidedly the prog camp, sort of like how Piper is like rock, pop, psychedelic, psychedelia overall. But I think there's a little more intelligence. There's people really, really good at instruments, really, really good at like jamming and composing structures that are not necessarily lyrical, but they're just sort of muscular instrumentation. The enhanced arrangements, they're more consistent and solid and just, like impressive. Um, so it's better than the Piper, but it's not. It's like sort of between House Car and Piper. All right, next one, Led Zeppelin 2. I think for a while Led Zeppelin 2 was my all-time favorite album. I wouldn't still is, but for a while it was. Um, I really relish those songs. What is and what should never be. And but we did it. Just like the same as Led Zeppelin 1, I relished how New York Times, NewYorkTimes.com, Dazed and Confused was one of the first songs that I think I ever called like a favorite song or something. I don't know. It was like it's so impactful that it reoriented and reevaluated what it meant to have a favorite song. Um, Next one is Motorhead, Ace of Spades. Geez, yeah, I was never crazy about Motorhead. It's like the Clash for me, or the Doors. I like the Doors maybe a little more. Motorhead's got a great image. I mean, if, on image alone, they're S. Like they embodied everything with their personas. Like ZZ Top is a little like that. They have a charm to them, but it's like the same thing with Rush trying too hard to seem smart. They're trying too hard to seem slick, and it makes me think that their music is sort of like not really that coherent or cohesive or both. Um, I mean, sometimes Motorhead, frankly, is a little too coherent. Maybe that's their problem. A little. They have sort of a back to basics approach, as sort of bare bones, lyrical structure, and I mean, and a kind of an underwhelming musical structure, like to boot. Like they're just sort of disappointing on every level. I mean, and it doesn't help that like they're such good guys at interviews and as frontmen, especially Lemmy. And R.I.P. to all of them. All three are dead. I mean, unlike Rush, you know, and ZZ Top, of course, the one guy died recently, a couple years ago, and a few years ago before that, Lemmy died, but so in a similar time frame. But Lemmy was the last guy in Rush. None of those guys survived. It's weird. You look at a band like Black Sabbath, has a similar sort of identity, I think, to Motorhead. It's like it's metal, but it's sort of not. It's sort of something a little bit more sophisticated and broader than what is publicly received as metal often. However, like the big difference is everyone from Sabbath is still alive except for Dio, but that's the second iteration of Sabbath. I wouldn't really call it Sabbath in a pure sense. A lot of people would disagree, but I still think it's not the purest, archetypal Sabbath that we know a lot. I think it's sort of a secondary derivative. And Motorhead is, I mean, it's just honestly, it's just like, like he just lives the party, I suppose. I mean, especially, just like partying way too much. And I think it kind of infected their ability to sort of cogitate a little and write songs that were like not even hip shitty. But I respect they're like the Clash. Like, I kind of respect what they represent, but I don't think it's authentic enough. Like I don't view punk as like a bunch of like our students becoming like joining this edgy band and being fake rebellious and making tons of money. I don't think likewise I don't see hard rock as like a bunch of dudes who like don't put much energy into songwriting and just sort of drink publicly. I just don't, you say that they're very good aesthetically, they're cool, but it's like a sort of like poserish cool. And so a lot of the seeds here is for me is kind of like that. But like there was it's very documented, but it wasn't like posers. It wasn't a poser. It was like ineffectual kind of guy. Obviously a lot of this you call it ineffectual, but I'm sure they're very, very popular, very, very effective in their earlier years, amazing careers, but they don't hit the mark. They just don't hit the mark. Anyway, next one up, the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Are you experienced? This is the first album by Jimi Hendrix. I ever heard of. I think Sister had a T-shirt or some kind of poster. Maybe not. Maybe my sister not always. Let's not be perfect. Like let's be real. But the fact is that it didn't matter that much because as a performer, he could use his custom made stomp boxes and he made them himself. He modified them himself. He could do that so that he could sort of gloss over certain mistakes in his playing. And I think this was a consistent thing he did. I know Woodstock was a disappointing performance on his part. He wasn't really the highlight of the festival, but Monterey Pop, he was far more of a highlight. Might even be, I don't remember if he was like the main one, but and then there's other ones like the Isle of Wight, so on. He had a short-lived career. He died 27, right? Like what? Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, some others. There was the whole curse of the White Lighter and the curse of the 27 Club. 27 was the year that the song "Time" was released by Pink Floyd, was written or whatever, and it was written to reflect how much older he had gotten. Roger Waters, I mean, and it's fascinating how that's probably the first brilliant song written by Roger Waters, and Hendrix had made all of his best work before he was even that age. And in some ways, Pink Floyd might be a more mature band. Maybe it ages better. But Hendrix, there's an undeniable complexity and sophistication to Hendrix's music that kind of transcends like this attitude that young people are stupid. I mean, you see this in Zeppelin too, but like in Zeppelin, they sort of embrace their stupidity. I think with Hendrix, it's easier to forget the stupidity listening to it. At least not, at least that's sort of the intention. Is it does try to be more intelligent, I think, than a band like Zeppelin does. Although structurally Zeppelin is very intelligent. It's just that the personality of Zeppelin it doesn't come off as extremely intelligent. Whereas Hendrix comes off as a stronger personality, even if sometimes structurally he's probably worse than Zeppelin in a lot of ways. And I still think that Zeppelin is a far better outfit. They lasted longer. Their albums are more meaningful. The music sounds better. they're gonna say everybody died. Anyway, so that was this thing, and already I haven't heard much about it already. But he had died in 2003 because he was English, but Irish patrol, and he was a band later on called the Fat Mattress. Or maybe that was before. Yeah, he went away from Hendrix to do his own group called the Fat Mattress, which sounds pretty hilarious. I should check that out. And he died 2003. I don't know if he died in like an interesting way. I don't know if his like let's see. I'll just look so I don't have to look it up later. Uh, he died. He died in his home in Ireland. Already pretty boring. A shock. It was for outside. He went to the Cork Hospital, Cork University Hospital near in the county of Cork, and he died from a shock hemorrhage due to oesophageal varices in reaction to cirrhosis of the liver. So he had some bad liver cirrhosis, probably from drinking and maybe doing heroin or something. Who knows? Not to besmirch him, but he's just lifelong alcoholic. Maybe not. Who knows? Definitely a perpetual drug user. Anyway, so these guys, another band, all three members are dead, just like Motorhead, and they're dead like in the sense that like none of them got to be old, like 80 years old, right? That's kind of the benchmark. Um, and then it's like, okay, who cares if they die? They're 80, I care, but who else? Like, the general public, probably not. Anyway, is this a B album or is this a C album? I'm gonna go with C because I think it's just there's the law of average dictates that most stuff is gonna be in the fucking middle, like almost like this normal distribution. So I don't really think this album Hendrix is a near and dear, to me, because one of the first bands that got me into this sort of broad category of classic rock music. But I don't think that Hendrix was really like. There's a little. Sometimes it's just more style than substance, to be honest. But style goes a long way if you don't know what the fuck you're doing at all. It's usually the first place you go to. So that's just. Yeah, I said it there. You heard it from me. Okay, next one, ZZ Top. This is a band that has never had a lot of wow factor. They have tasty playing, consistently cool sound. Lagrange is on here. This album doesn't have a ton of hits. I think I don't know if this was their breakthrough album. Because I don't know much about the 70s, history. I think it was their first album that really had a major hit. One that is still like a recognizable song. The next one I think was Push in 75, Take Us, some other singles. And maybe it wasn't until the 80s that they had like more resurgence with Illuminator. Yeah, Illuminator is probably my favorite album by them. So when we get to Illuminator later on in this list, I'll put that at the higher rank for sure. It's always cute. It's a classic to me. It's classic in a very obscure sense. I was right about everything, but uh it's not called 21st Century Schizoid Man. That's just a song on it. It's called In the Court of the Crimson King. So that could be why it wasn't more successful. It was released October '69 in the UK. I think the Court of the Crimson King was good as a single, right? But I do think that if they were able to repackage it, relabel it as 21st Century Schizoid Man, they might have gotten better publicity. And then it just because it would have been so such a strong punch into the the record buying public's awareness. And the follow up album, the sophomore album, In the Wake of Poseidon, I'm not convinced that was really um like a substantial album, really. I mean, it was sort of like, it was in the wake of their success, but they were a super group that had like tumultuous, inter intra band issues, and the whole sociopolitics and whatnot. So I think they had like, Robert Fripp on guitar and Greg Lake as the singer, and they had some saxophone players going on. They used the Mellotron. I mean, they had everything. They had jazz, classical, and experimental music, right? Like they just had everything. I think uh, it was like too good to be true, and they just like I don't think those human beings, as brilliant as they were and are, some of them are still alive. Unfortunately, Greg Lake has passed away, R.I.P. 2016. But yeah, as much as they have passed away, they were very much in their in the spring of their life, and they couldn't handle like the runaway success, or the need to pump out more and more brilliant tracks. I mean, they kind of put a lot into this album. It's such an amazing album. It's better than most. I don't know if it's my favorite album, but like it's like a desert island album. It really is. So in the Court of the Crimson King, like it's a favorite. Maybe not my number one, but it's a standout favorite. Please buy it, own it, love it, whatever. Okay, next one up. Fleetwood Mac Rumors. That's an A. The problem with Fleetwood Mac is that they went through so many iterations, and this is like, the Mach 1, Mach 2, Mach 3, all of that. But Fleetwood Mac is like they were never amazing to me in any of their iterations. Like they had Peter Green as their guitarist, and who's better than Peter Green? Not a lot of people, but like still Peter Green was kind of annoying. He was sort of um what's the word, self-important. He had this self-important air. I guess some people relate to. I don't. His playing was really contained in like a chill, squarish way. Okay, cool. Some interesting blues leads. I don't know. He wasn't like a Mike Bloomfield. He was just sort of like a square. He was like the square Mike Bloomfield. He definitely lasted longer than Mike Bloomfield, although he didn't last that long in Fleetwood Mac. And then Mick Fleetwood or whatever rearranged it. And as far as I know, Mick Fleetwood was still on drums, and then they had the girl brought in from America, because this band was British, if you didn't know that. And then they brought in Stevie Nicks, I think Lindsey Buckingham too. Maybe it probably was among others who I don't know. Yeah, and they were American, Lindsey Buckingham, and it's some good music, but it's not like, it's a little bit insouciant, and I just kind of could fall asleep to it at this point. Um, it's like it's like excellent coffee shop music, but it's like unhip coffee shop music that is just sort of like borderline ambient and relatively like nostalgic. And that's a category that's sort of like indecisive and sort of weak shit because of that. Like it's, if you played like the Carpenters, at least you kind of like went out of your way to like get a feeling. But the Fleetwood Mac is this Rumors album is like the Carpenters, but you don't really feel like there's anything there. Or if there's something there, it's sort of like glitzy. Uh, it's got this, at least it's got the 70s false glamour to it. It reminds me of, if anything, just like a pop sort of reaction to disco, but it doesn't have the folk pop mentality that is really necessary for an album like this to have immortal appeal. But then again, I mean, all these comparisons are like comparisons I would make about Guns N' Roses, or criticisms I would make about, all these criticisms are similar to what I'd say about Guns N' Roses vis-a-vis what it did to rock music, which it sort of blew it out of the water, but it did it in a sort of like a death knell fashion. Fleetwood Mac sort of blew folk pop out of the water, and then you don't have Bread anymore. The band, the best of, there's a good album called The Best of Bread, right? It's very tender, you know, or some guy like Roy Harper or someone like, or Terry Reid even, a little heavier for sure. These guys, Donovan is a little bit of a sideshow by comparison, but like is this kind of like folky, poppy, wholesome music. It reaches its death knell with Fleetwood Mac. Um, Guns N' Roses is more like that with rock, with 80s, hair metal, glam rock, whatever. Like it just, that whole ballpark of, cheesy, not very timeless rock music that's, a quick thrill that blows up, it burgeons and blows up like a balloon. It would be GNR. Fleetwood Mac just does the same thing. I don't know. I don't know how else to say it, but I think it's an A rank album. I just don't think it transcends its self-aware brilliance the way that the S tier stuff does. Deep Purple, Machine Head. Oh well, yeah, Machine Head's a pretty cool album. I have to look up the track listing because if it's what I think it is, it might be short of S. But if it is a little better, it is S, because Deep Purple is one of my favorite bands ever, and for good reason. It's not just like I'm not just saying that to sound like unduly complex. I do think Deep Purple is genuinely an amazing band. Maybe not so much in the '80s, late '70s, but altogether they're awesome. And then the early '70s they were brilliant. And a lot of people forget that they started out in the '60s, and then a lot of their players had earlier bands that they're also documented, and you can buy their music or listen to it still. Like they have more of a pedigree than people realize. Yeah, I mean, and their first singer isn't even the singer people like. He did Hush, I believe. That was a single off of Shades of Deep Purple. He did. He left, and then they got Ian Gillan, and Ian Gillan was like their mainstay, front man. But the first singer was like one that some people prefer because he was the guy who sang on Hush. And so Deep Purple's been around in many iterations, and it's been around for a long time. And they still tour. I mean, Ozzy just retired. Heaven forbid his health gets worse, but he just like officially retired. Deep Purple was touring in New Jersey, near where I live, like yesterday. They were performing yesterday. I regret not seeing them. I don't have the means to go like drive around everywhere right now. I'm kind of busy, but and they probably still kill it. To be fair, Richie Blackmore doesn't play with them, and John Ward left, and it's not the same band anymore. But they play all the hits, so that counts for something. Um, okay, Deep Purple, yeah. And by the way, Machine Head, I always thought Machine Head was like their second album. It just seemed the album cover is really, really faded and cheap, and sort of it looks sounds like it looks like a garage band album, like retroactively grandfathered in or something. Like it looks like all over the place. It doesn't look like a '70s album. It looks like a '90s album, but at the same time, it has this like unadorned quality that you only get in the '70s. Low tech, right? Earlier, an early look, but it feels like '90s in their sort of outlook. However, Deep Purple, um, Machine Head was what their sixth album? Yeah, the first one was Shades of Deep Purple. Second one was the Book of Taliesin. It was a Welsh. It's an obscure medieval reference. The Book of Taliesin. The third one was Deep Purple. It's the eponymous album. The fourth one was Deep Purple and Rock, a brilliant album. The fifth one was Fireball, also brilliant. And then the sixth one, 1972, Machine Head. Okay, what's on Machine Head? I know they have Smoke on the Water, Lazy, and Highway Star. Okay, Highway Star alone puts this shit in S tier. It just is. It's the working man's Fleetwood Mac, but it's like the pissed off working man's Fleetwood Mac. It's just good. It's a little pointless, but the attitude has a serious bite, and it gives you some kind of weird confidence listening to it. I don't know. There's not a lot of music like that. I mean, it's almost maybe in some ways it's like the Linkin Park of that's a bad comparison. I don't know. I don't know what to compare it to. It does but it gives you confidence in like a funny way. Next one up. This also is an album that could give you some confidence, but not nearly as much as Machine Head. Van Halen, 1984? This one's got Little Dreamer on it. I think it has Jump. Does it have Running? It doesn't have Running with the Devil. What does it have? It has a number of good ones. Panama, Hot for Teacher. Okay, it does not have Little Dreamer, so that's disappointing. Because I thought because of the baby smoking the pack of cigarettes, the cherub angel, I thought that would be like necessitate it the album containing Little Dreamer. It doesn't. Okay. But between Panama and Jump, that puts it pretty high. It's gonna be an A. I mean, those two songs are just fucking immortal to me. And Hot for Teacher's fun. There's a good amount of filler on a lot of these Van Halen albums. Like, let's be honest. Van Halen had a funny, like, strategic rhythm of putting in hits and then sort of intercalating these like sort of floppy songs in there, like they just sort of like just sort of just kind of rattle in your head, but don't really make you feel much. They're kind of funny, like they're lyrically charming, but the music just doesn't kick or doesn't get you anywhere. But this song has enough hits on it. Mainly Panama is the best one. That song is like one of the top rock songs ever. Even if it's overplayed. Jump is is also like that. It's overplayed and a little annoying, but undeniably it's just awesome. This is sort of like the peak for Van Halen. 84, right? They're about to transition into Van Hagar, was because David Lee Roth, the singer, leaves, does some solo work, kind of travels the world in a very like kind of a high publicity kind of way, I believe, or at least a very eccentric out to lunch kind of way. And then Sammy Hagar replaces him, and he brings the band kind of home a little. Like they were kind of out there as this exotic sort of high charged act, energetic, like no other. But then he kind of dialed it back and made them more of like a romantic, kind of like nostalgic band. And you know what? It works. Like if you weren't disappointed by the fact that they changed, you had to acknowledge that like the music was still really good. So there's something to be said about, there's just the whole structure of the band with or without any particular singer. Or just the personnel could change a bit, and it was like the music was still really good. You don't get that a lot. That's why Van Halen's one of my all-time favorite bands. Is that I think just like the camaraderie of having the brothers Alex and Eddie really kind of helped the band stay afloat, stay consistent, and it's a beautiful, beautiful sort of um, collaboration, like years of collaboration. But Eddie Van Halen died, and like just a year ago or whatever it was, 2 years, 3 years. It's really sad, man. They rocked. They just, and that's all they did. Like they weren't like a bullshit. It wasn't even like poser level. It was like, it's like the god tier or whatever. They really, really rocked. They truly did. And who else can say that except for um Guns N' Roses and Deep Purple and Fleetwood Mac maybe a little bit, but not really. So they're an A. This isn't my favorite Van Halen album, but here. Speaking of, let's just go to it. The next Van Halen album is the self-titled, and this one has Running for the Devil, Little Dreamer, Eruption. This one 1980, 78. This is 6 years before, dude. Didn't realize there was that much of a gap. Running with the Devil, Ain't Talking About Love. You Really Got Me. Okay, that's a lot. Eruption. That's first side. That's side one. That's side one. Side two has Ice Cream Man, Little Dreamer, Jamie's Crying. And it's got Atomic Punk also. I mean, side A is unbeatable. Side B is very good. So S. It's not my favorite one out of all of these as an album, like just as a playthrough, because it does drop off in side B. But I think Crimson does. I mean, the problem with Van Halen is they weren't a concept album, or they didn't make concept albums. And this Van Halen album, self-titled, it was a more mature album than you would expect. It wasn't their first album, 78, but they just didn't do the concept thing. Like a lot of hip hop now, they do concept albums even if the music isn't good, and it helps their credibility. It helps the playthrough of the albums. Their albums, you say what you will about a lot of hip hop, but the albums they're like you can play through the fucking tracks, and the master's kind of smooth, and like there's an awareness that the whole experience, it's like a movie more seamless. This album isn't really like that. This album's a little, it's like a horror movie, I guess. It's got jump scares, but that's kind of the charm. So it's S, but it's a little bit, harder on the ears in some ways than the other three. And they're all so far to pick them. They're all pretty intense albums, sonically or emotionally. And Van Halen might be the least intense emotionally, but kind of the most disjointed, if you will. But it just shows how diverse or varied or whatever the word you want to pick, um, how varied, uh, how assorted the best of the best can really be in something like an art form like heavy metal or hard rock. Next one, AC/DC Powerage. Okay, this one seems like it's sort of like a false inclusion. Like it just has a funny album cover. Like what's really on Powerage that makes me need to put it on this list? Yeah, I'm already getting like second rate kind of. Um, it has no real singles. Rock and Roll Damnation, Powerage. Yeah, this is just people like wanting to over promote AC/DC because they just like the idea that the band is named after some electricity, jargon. It's like I'm gonna put it in D. It has the same value as ZZ Top. It's like, ooh, zappy. Ooh, it must be. The rock fans will like this. That's not how it works, dude. Really on the nose references to guitars and shit is never that cool. I mean, rarely. That's called being corny. When it's not. That's like the opposite of what people want. And this is the kind of thing that like makes people think rock music is stupid or cheesy or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, they just care about like they're just like weirdly obsessed with their guitars and they just fetishize them and they fetishize amplifiers and they don't actually care about like production. They just care about like it's like they just like the look of the objects. It's a little like it shows you how declined rock appreciation is. I think even if like people who like put this, whoever made this list of albums, I didn't make this list, right? They put a lot of good albums in, but then they also like just saw this and threw it in too. Like just like maybe it was their favorite. I don't know. Maybe they just sort of shoehorned it in because it was a personal favorite. But I don't know if it's really a bona fide classic. Okay, next one. Bob Dylan, Highway 61 Revisited. Okay, the guitar player for this lived like around the corner from where I grew up. Mike Bloomfield. Or he was on. I mean, he did like Rolling Stone. I don't know if he did every track, right? Let me look up the track list for Highway 61. Bob Dylan is. If you view him as a rock musician, because some people still view him as just like a folk musician. Like he destroyed folk music. He's famous for that, like picking up the electric guitar and embracing it in his song, his music, his singing as a singing instrument accompaniment. But reality is like he went away. He really went away from it pretty quick soon after, and just started doing folk music again. Like it was sort of like this, like a stunt, you know. But that's just life. I mean, he was really young, right? He was like 20. You know? I mean, this is definitely a respectable album, but I'll put it in B. I don't think the album is like to die for, but I think that like Rolling Stone, just sort of Desolation Row, like Rolling Stone, the certain hits just sort of edge it out from C because those are legendary songs. I mean specifically like Rolling Stone, it's a fucking legendary song. Uh, but I don't think the album is that legendary on its. I mean, the album's like legendary, has a cool name, right? But important function in rock history for sure. It's a historical album, very historically relevant, significant, legendary album. But sonically, I'm not crazy. What I am a lot more crazy about is this Dio album. This was his fucking return to form after he left Sabbath. I think he was kicked out of Sabbath. Um, Holy Diver's on here. Oh, the album is 83, and the album is Holy Diver, which I never knew the album was called Holy Diver. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't. Like, I knew it passively. I never thought twice about it. Um, okay, let me see the track list because problem with Dio is he's got some really really cool songs, but then it doesn't have like a consistency in terms of them being really really cool. There's sort of a lack of staying power in a way. Um, there's something kind of cheesy about Dio. Like I love the guy, but he relies a little too much on his sort of his sort of like flamboyant take on metal that he pioneered or seemed to. And he was in some funny bands before. Like he was in Rainbow before. It's kind of a funny name. And before that, he was in a band called Elf. He's always doing like he's also been kind of funny about Dio. Um, I wouldn't call it eccentric, but it's a little like you almost feel like he's not as dedicated to the metal aesthetic as some of the other guys are. He's not really that gothic compared to some of the other main metal pioneers. And he's definitely a secondary pioneer. Like he's not an originator of metal. He kind of reinvented certain features to metal, including certain aesthetic flourishes that we shouldn't take for granted. But they do kind of, indicate him as someone that's is not like, maybe the best of the best. Like again, he is kind of secondary, admittedly. Um, hold on one second. Okay, there and back again. Patrick Tail with P.B. Richardson. Um, this is the thing. I had to take a brief hiatus to sort of counsel one of my roommates about some personal, private matters and stuff. Nothing too crazy or what's the word? Nothing too like high stakes. It wasn't like like a suicide attempt or something. I was having a rather therapeutic chat with a roommate, and I think it was for the best. A good way to spend a Saturday night. A little like slightly social. Yeah, and it's actually he's actually a good guy to talk to. Now the other thing is, but I spent like an hour doing that, and so I forgot where I was. I guess I was talking about Dio, Ronnie James Dio. Yeah, this Holy Diver album, is it's pretty strong. It's a B. No, sorry, it's a B because it doesn't have really like it's like the Bob Dylan. It's the metal. It's almost like the metal Bob Dylan, whatever. Like it's got like two good songs and then a bunch of like questionable ones. And the two good songs, like Rainbow in the Dark, is the first song. That's amazing. It's amazing. And then Holy Divers, like I think it's maybe like penultimate musically, but at the forefront and second to none in terms of lyrics. So it's like and like Dylan, there's like a good lyric song, and then there's a good music song, and then there's a bunch of questionable, deep cuts. They kind of keep you dragging, and some of them are better keeping you dragged along than others. With Dio's, it's in that sort of tier. So a great standalone kind of return to form for Ronnie James Dio. I think it's his first real independent album ever. The year is what, early 80s, I would think, because that was when all that spooky gothic shock rock metal was yeah, 83. That's probably my favorite. I think it's the most romantic era in rock music. It's sort of like late 70s to early 80s. Like a 10-year period, 75 to 85. I think anytime before rock is on the coming up, and anytime after rock is on the coming down. And that's the most romantic era for me. Like if I was a youth in the golden age of rock music, it probably wouldn't be like the 60s, you know, or it would probably be 75 to 85, just because I think the quality of the world was better for rock. Now, seeing some of these early bands would be great in the early 70s, but I don't know if I would like the scene that much. I mean, it was all like in its pioneering days, kind of rougher around the edges. Anyway, so Dio is a B. But keep in mind, B is like is above average, and it reflects some favoritism on my part. It's not totally a demerit like D is, or even C really. C is completely average in respect to all the others. And of course, I always say on these podcasts, that what's average here is like miles ahead of something. Maybe nowadays it's not that just sort of fluff album that came out, like the last David Bowie album, or the last Ozzy album. The last Ozzy album I thought was really good for 2023, but compared to everything else he's done, it's not like the best music in the world, or ever written, ever recorded, right? Now, speaking of some of the best music I ever recorded, we have "Let It Bleed" by the Rolling Stones. One of my favorite albums out of the covers. There's the Cake, and then there's it's just a sort of self-referential, vinyl record spinning. The bottom, and the Cake is like daintily topping it off, and it's like a Christmas ornament. I don't even understand. And then of course their visages or whatever, sort of baked into the cake on the top. Um, it's on the, like cherries on top. Let It Bleed though is not my favorite Stones album. I'm actually probably it's probably like not it's not even like my second favorite or third favorite Stones album. But I've always liked the cover, which goes to show that like sometimes the best covers have like the worst. It's like it feels like an advertisement. Worst material, right? Like the worst material because they're compensating for having weak material. And really, I think the best music is usually has a drab album cover, something like Deep Purple's Machine Head's pretty drab. Um, the Van Halen one is sort of unassuming in some ways. Obviously, Led Zeppelin one is just like a photograph, and it's not even in color. I mean, what's more drab than that? That's probably my favorite album on this. So, and Led Zeppelin 2 is literally the same thing, but just graphically rearranged with and some superimposed images that are not they're more intriguing, but it's I mean it varies somewhat. Like the Hendrix album has got some good quality. The Doors one is totally boring. Trace Hombres. The Hendrix one is like mid, and Fleetwood Mac is kind of like that too, kind of mid. So the Rush one, see, I mean the Rush one might be my least favorite on here. And it's got this very like intriguing quality to it. But it is kind of drab too. So maybe it's not an exact science. Anyway, the next one. Is this U2? Okay, I'm not saying this because I don't really know their work, nor do I really care to. I do. I don't like not know it. I just don't know it with any like measure of depth. Kiss. Oh, is this Destroyer? This one is the one with Rock and Roll All Night. Yeah, so this album is not my favorite Kiss album. Um. Oh, you know what? I was wrong. It is like it's one of my favorites. It's got the B side has got God of Thunder, Detroit Rock City, and Beth. Yeah, it's an amazing album. I put it in A. I think Kiss is a band that's like even their best music is sort of annoying, but it's still listenable. It's just like contextual. Like you have to. It's the kind of music that you would play. It's like a conversation starter. So it's good. It's good music to play with like a female friend. Someone that's like you need to talk to about something unimportant. To talk to them about Kiss. It's like it's got that sort of semi-relevant status where you're like, is this like it's like safe. It's just like a safe thing to talk about. It doesn't imply anything about your personality or your politics or your way of living or thinking that wouldn't be conducive to you seeming like a sleazebag. I mean, it's just like this. It's like a cartoon band. I mean, it's a combination of some of the most interesting things in the world, cartoons, and rock music. It's like a very palatable, thing to discuss. So there's a utility to Kiss that you might not be aware of. And the music's also pretty good. I'll give it. I think this is an A. But it's low key because people love the trash. They love the shit on Kiss. Okay, another album. I'm surprised this one's even on here. This is actually kind of a hip pick. Sabotage by Black Sabbath. It's like their last great album, and they've made like 30 albums. How many? So, but this one was like their fifth or something album, the sixth album. Sabotage, and I don't know how. Yeah, the hit. It was in July of '75. It was recorded in the midst of a legal battle with the band's former manager Patrick Meehan, who I've never really looked into or heard about. But I guess he wow. So he like basically produced like all of their best albums, the early stuff, or he managed them. No, he was a producer. I don't know. He was involved. So that tells you something that guy was really responsible for sort of setting their sound. I think because I mean, once he's gone, their music deteriorates. It's just a fact. Um, so this guy Patrick Meehan, who's got my namesake, funny enough, is responsible in part for some of the best music ever made. I mean, I guess it's just ironic that I like it, or I hope it's not a coincidence. I mean, I hope there's or whatever, like a bias. I hope there's truth to it because I just happen to really like this music. Um, but Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath to me is really the last fully formed good album. And even then, that's it's just because the title opening track is so heavy, so epic, so captivating and impressive, inspiring and intense. It's good music, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, right? So that was like their last like amazing album. What 74, maybe early 75. Um, from the Morgan Studios. Is that in London, dude? Oh man, so many great studios in London. That was where all these great albums were recorded there. Wow, I wonder if it's still available. Anyway, 73. So they made Sabotage almost 2 years after, like a year, what, 2.5 years after it was released, 2.5 years after one of their best albums, the last great album, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I don't think Sabotage is that swell of an album. I mean, like really, like it's got The Writ, which is like 9 minutes. So the fact that The Writ is on there, and Writ's a pretty good song, and it's like it takes up a lot of the album, that kind of helps. Um, Trying to think what the okay, I guess I'll put in C because it's got The Writ and Symptom of the Universe on the A side. Super Czar, I had a hard time remembering some of these Sabbath songs. They definitely blur together. It's really interesting that some guy named Patrick Meehan was like left. They left from Sabbath production, and then all their albums just kind of started fucking up. Tells you a lot. It's unfortunate, and it's unfortunate that they just never had a return to form, which is a concept or term I use a lot in this. Okay, next one up is Bruce Springsteen. Um, if there are more Sabbath albums, you'll see them ranked far higher, by the way. For some reason, the Sabotage just falls off quite a bit. It's still good though. I'll give it a B because it's just heavy and cool. Give it a B. It's like, I mean, Have a Cigar isn't really that much better. Okay, the Bruce Springsteen, it's like a B minus. Sorry, Sabotage. But I am bored talking about. I mean, I'm sure boring you guys talking about Sabotage. Like, who fucking cares? It is a turning point in Black Sabbath, lore and history and chronology. So we'll take that for what it's worth. Um, Sabbath. Sorry, fuck. Bruce Springsteen. It's getting late. I'm sort of running out of bandwidth. Uh, not actual bandwidth. Just my fucking brain is it's like melting in the heat from the radiation from the fucking moon. Okay. Bruce Springsteen. Geez, greetings from these. This guy fucking. Okay, I'll tell you right now. I don't like Bruce Springsteen. I think his music is like it doesn't. I like that song like "Dancing in the Dark." I like them enough, but I don't love him. I don't love almost anything he does. Because "Dancing in the Dark" is kind of gothic, right? Like fake gothic or whatever. It's like approaching it, and all is in the rivers. Philadelphia, I've listened to it. I've given everything as much of a shot as I can. And is this Born to Run? It's not Born to Run. Yeah, okay, it's Born to Run. That's a good one. I don't know. I'm sure he's got more tricks up his sleeves than I'm aware of. The Clarence, we had that sax player who for a long time, Clarence or whatever, and that guy apparently was like a legend. It all seems like corny bullshit. I'm giving it a D. Yeah, I just don't. It's like Lagrange, like it's corny, like I don't. That does is that defining your entire album? Like I don't give a shit. Born to Run, baby, we were born to run. Like I don't care. Like I just next one a little bit better. Hotel California. Okay, this one I'm not a big fan of the Eagles necessarily. I think I was as like a middle school, high school kid. Someone because they just were ubiquitous. They're so played. They're so well known. They're like they're low key extremely famous. Like it's almost like they're almost as famous as like the Beatles. For most people. I mean, who hasn't heard of the Eagles, right? It just sounds like something that's catchy, and someone says that's a band, you're gonna remember that. Oh, the Eagles is a band, right? Um, it sounds like it's the purest American band, which in some ways it is, or tries to be. It definitely represents Americana in this goofy like hybrid of like soft rock and hard rock, and like sort of like tries to be everything all at once, but then it sort of fails to like take off at a sonic musical level. The album Hotel California 76. So this is a pretty cool album for like 76. Like 76 is kind of like late in the game for like what are considered like old school classic rock 70s albums. 76 is pretty fucking late. And in fact, I think as a single, Hotel California was only released in like late February of 77. So that's like late for like, this is like I think all the Zeppelin music had been like released by this at this point, and all the best Sabbath, Purple, like all these great bands, Uriah Heep, they all came and went. And the Eagles just drops this like whopper, this mega album with Hotel California. So that's respectable, just for the continuity there. Just like they're carrying the torch. But as a standalone, I mean, I guess it's like a B. I don't know. I don't. Hotel California is not like that awesome of a song. I think it's It's a little bit like comfortable. It's like a shitty Comfortably Numb or like a Stairway or whatever. It's just like it doesn't really like you. It's a fun song. It's a curious song to learn about when you just it's like you're just the whole process of like unraveling the lyrics, and the guitar solo is pretty damn good. But like there's also like the problem is that we're talking about albums here, and there's like the rest of the album. As a song, it's an A, maybe an S, depending on how fucking stoned you are. But like really, the whole album together does just it's not like the most like creative combination. It's not like breaking the bank in any which way. It doesn't feel like they're breaking the bank making it. Yeah, it's like a B album. I know, like one song can only do so much. And they have like Laugh in the Fast Lane, which is not a bad tune, but that's like your second best. I mean, maybe I just need to listen to it more. Here's one that's also kind of dicey. Um, I could see how Hotel California might have some surprises that I just forgot about because it really is such a successful. I should probably okay just out of pure um humility and self doubt, I'm gonna put Hotel California in A, and then I'm gonna put and then Ziggy's and I'm just gonna hope that that's where it belongs. The next one is Ziggy Stardust and the Spider from Mars. 72. So again, this is like Nixon, like, I mean, this is like early 70s, right? British Trident Studio, of course, the now defunct, tragically defunct Trident Studio. A lot of great music recorded there. Many and a consistently interesting recording history at Trident. Now it's just like a plaque on the fucking wall. And even in a city like London, they just don't really respect that level of tradition enough to keep it this recording studio afloat for years and years and years. Anyway, I don't know, maybe it just lost its glamour. Who knows why it went out? But it did. A lot of Elton John stuff there too, and early Genesis, which I don't even know if they have early Genesis on here. It's kind of a shame because that's like low key awesome. Like it's like Jethro Tull. But anyway, we're not here to talk about you know Genesis. I mean, not yet. We're talking about David Bowie, Ziggy Dark with his Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Obviously, glam rock, proto punk, smash hit. High, a chart topper in the UK, substantially less so in the US, but still on the charts. Um, I feel like this one's aged really well. People still sort of are curious about it. It's not. It's a visually cool. It's one of the coolest images I think. I mean, it's just got an interesting like urban sort of emptiness, but there's like a warmth to it, and and I think the um okay, the problem with this one is that it's actually like the whole album is him rebranding himself as Ziggy Stardust, but he kind of abandons that fairly quick after. It doesn't stay that way for long. And before this album, you had Hunky Dory in '71, and that one was what you got Changes, Life on Mars, Andy Warhol, 8-line poem. I mean, the A side is, I mean, the side two is kind of whatever, but side A is like consistently good. Life on Mars is on Hunky Dory. Life on in Changes. So that's an amazing album. 71. I mean, a lot of the amazing albums came out in '71. Ziggy Stardust 72. I mean, okay, to be fair, he kept he kept things in motion. He made another good album not long after. But the problem is that he like rebrands himself as Ziggy Stardust. He has a really good aesthetic going with this album. It's more put together. Um, but I just don't know if it's like it's a little punky. It's like punky, and it doesn't really the music doesn't really have that same operatic quality that you got in Hunky Dory. And Hunky Dory is kind of a weird album, but it's just a little more authentic. This one, it's got this punk vibe to it, but the punk is almost like superficial, like it's saccharine. I don't know. I'm not like. This is an album that's like aesthetically fetishized, but the music doesn't live up to like the aesthetic. It doesn't surpass it. It doesn't take note. It's like sidelined by the aesthetic. But it's a good album. I'll give it a B. I mean, I think if I could compare it to any of these, it's probably the Rolling Stones. It's like or the Dio, maybe the Dylan. Um, I'm probably gonna have to explain why some of these some of these albums are sitting next to each other at the end of this. Because if you didn't list here before, like, okay, I'll just do it quickly. S is like, I'm like, it makes me like, come rope in my fucking pants. Like it's that good. Like I feel like it's like Desert Island albums. A is like stuff that's like you can't even just listen to it. You have to own a copy. B is like, okay, well, I mean, you bought it. It's pretty cool. Maybe just hang it up on the wall because it's got a great, you um, album cover. It's got a great cover, right? C is like, okay, yeah, technically it's great, but I sort of don't enjoy it that much. And then D is like, this is overrated. Wow. Okay, this is like really overrated. So that's kind of like how it goes. Yeah. Okay. I think no more need to explain. Okay, now Rainbow. Oh, Rainbow, man. Speaking of Dio, dude, this is at least at the level of Holy Diver. Um, it's kind of a jam. It's like an early metal jam band album. It's funny. There's a lot of like bombastic playing and what's this? Is this Catch the Rainbow? That's the name. It's the second Rainbow album. So in case you don't know, uh, no, maybe it's not. Geez, what? Okay, Rising. That's what it's called. It's just called Rising by Rainbow. Sometimes known as Rainbow Rising. 76. So this is kind of late in the late release in the whole classic rock chronology. It's a funny way to put it. The chronology. What's it got? Stargazer Side 2. Didn't realize that was. I didn't know that was Side 2. I thought it was the opening track. Side A. Side B, I mean, whatever. I guess they're interchangeable. I don't know. For me, this has got the same problem the Eagles album has. Is that it's like it is good, but you only really remember like one song. But the vibe is good enough that you can sort of get you promote it beyond. It's like hit. It's like hit power to like deliver hits or whatever. Like there's not that many hits on the album, but it's just the vibe is so good that it goes beyond like the limited hit. And it's, to be fair, but like they have like one great super hit, which is Stargazer. Just like Hotel California. People are probably wondering why am I comparing like a legendary song like Hotel California to some like rather obscure like early metal, you know, strange fucker song like Stargazer. Stargazer happens to be one of the best songs I've ever heard, and if you don't know it, that's your problem. You know, Rainbow is a better band than people are aware. It's just is. It's just like they had a bad reputation. I think maybe because they call themselves Rainbow. You know, it's a little bit flamboyant. Even if back before the gays co-opted it, it was associated with like leprechauns. I mean, it's like it's never really had like this, never really been that metallic of a thing of a subject. The physics and appearance of it's like mythology. It's still rather whatever. Like they're not like a cool thing. Never really have been. Always see them because you see that it's an optical illusion, right? So yeah, the most unlike what it is in a way. I think it's okay. Next one, Allman Brothers was what's the not sorry, not Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner brothers and sisters or whatever it is. No, what's the one pronounced Leonard Skinner? I don't know which one this is. Which is not something I'm gonna be too ashamed of. What's the album? Pronounced? I know it's Leonard Skinner. I mean, come on. Um, this look, the album cover is pretty lame. All those Southern rock albums are just dudes standing somewhere, like a bunch of dudes just standing in like the open street. It's like rather depressing. I mean, Leonard Skinner is like funny because they're really considered really really cheesy, right? But they have like a veneer of like authenticity to them. But it's almost like a bullshit. It's like the least authentic version of authentic you could get. I don't know. Like maybe they're just overplayed, so it's diluted for me. Like I don't think anyone like who. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just that redneck. I mean, right? Like pronounced Lin. Yeah. See, this is a weird album, dude. It's like Simple Man, Tuesday's Gone, Freebird does not have Sweet Home Alabama. And the second album has Sweet Home Alabama. Okay, I'll give them credit. Their music is like their first album, 73. That's really late for like. So I could see maybe they're just like a later band. They kind of awkwardly emerged in '73. Trying to think of some other band that emerged like Thin Lizzy maybe. Some band that emerged like in like the late early '70s, '73. What it's like mid, but it's early mid, late early. It's just an awkward time to have your debut album, and quite a good one. I between Give Me Three Steps, Freebird, uh, Tuesday's Gone, Simple Man. Um, it's pretty cool. So it's definitely not E. In fact, I should probably find something for E. Um, what is it? It's I mean, it's got to be like with Freebird. I mean, it's got to be like any album that has Stargazer or Crazy Train or Hotel California or Beth by Kiss, right? It's gonna be in the same tier as song as Freebird. But I'm thinking of demoting Rainbow to B because it is a little like yeah, it's like the Have a Cigar. Or sorry, I think the album is actually called "Wish You Were Here." I keep calling it "Have a Cigar" because probably because I want one. But "Wish You Were Here" is like I think the name of the album. I don't remember. It's that unimportant. Um, the album should have been called "Have a Cigar" for Pete's sake. Um, the problem with Pink Floyd is that they're a funny band in a way, but they have no actual active sense of humor. It's like it's like they're funny, but then they don't want you to laugh. Like, I mean, I guess that's part of their success. It's a formula in a way, a cool one, but uh, an obvious one too. Okay. those if anything, those guys shouldn't have even been in those bands at all, and they should have just been in Bad Company. So I wouldn't really call it a super group. It's not like you got like Eric Clapton in there. Good trivia about this band. This band's unusual because it was under the Zeppelin label, like Swan Song or whatever. And Peter Grant was their manager, and Peter Grant also managed Zeppelin, and he ended up managing Bad Company after Zeppelin disbanded for like a couple years, almost. So, or maybe more, but just in that ballpark. And so, whatever this album is, this they only made like two albums. Bad Company, they were kind of like a fluke. Um, 74. I did not. Okay, this is another band that started out in like the late early 70s or whatever, and that's kind of why they had this awkward. They're a little bit more like Leonard Skinner than you might suspect. They're like a cooler version of Leonard Skinner. Everything that's awkward and indecent about Leonard Skinner is corrected by Bad Company, but Bad Company is like way more irrelevant than Leonard Skinner ever. Anyone would ever hope Leonard Skinner would be. Like Leonard Skinner, you say what you want, they are relevant. I'm kind of shocked by it too. Um, um, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. See, my colors are inverted, so this would be black with white font typeface or whatever. But on the screen, it's like white with black. Well, it's yeah, not black with white like it should be. It's white with black. Okay, I'm like losing it. Headley Grange. It was really associated with Led Zeppelin. It's kind of trippy actually. Hypnosis designs the sleeve. I mean, the sleeve is like, oh, whatever sleeve, but that's cool. That's good trivia. Um, Not his best work. Ready for Love. That's a good song. Bad Company is a good. Okay. Oh, it's not a C. It's better. It's B. I think it's at the level of Rainbow Rising. And then this goes up to A because Freebird is. They have like four good songs on there, man. Like veritable classics. Okay, next one, Def Leppard. I mean, that's just the world, dude. So a band like Leonard Skinner, better than Rainbow and Bad Company is like it's fucking gut wrenching. That's the truth. Um, what is next? Def Leppard, Pyromania. Okay, I'm trying to remember. I think this is like the one that they're like supposed to be like they're kind of like they're like critically their best one or whatever. But I just don't think it is. I think it's kind of like it's like D. It's like yeah, the songs are recognizable, but are they good? Okay. like boring. And then you get the one like hidden gem, and you're like, well, I can see why people like this song, right? Because they have these amazing hidden gems, like everyone does on this list. But for some reason, the hype just is like insane with them. Probably because they just have this veneer of innocence. Maybe I mean maybe Leonard Cohen isn't as good as Bob Dylan. Like there's some like comparisons that that are falsifiable. Like some people believe Leonard Cohen is better, or Donovan is better. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I think David Bowie's songwriting is better than Bob Dylan's songwriting. I think Keith Richards' songwriting is probably better. Or at least the combination of him and Jagger. I think Robert Plant's songwriting is better. I can name a lot of people better songwriting than Bob Dylan. For some reason, though, Bob Dylan is like the name of the game. I don't get it. And the Beatles, it's like everything. Almost the bands on this list I like more than the Beatles. Leonard Skinner I like less, but I'm just like a basic, bro in some ways. Can't liking Leonard Skinner is like a personality, you know, decision. It's like a stylistic decision. It really is going to affect the way people perceive you. Anyway, I don't, but I feel I do. I can't trash them all day, right? Or night, as it is here. Foreigner, man, I just keep cycling. Um, okay, Foreigner is a band that's like it's a little like Kiss. It's like cheesy, but it's actually not. Like it isn't as it's like it's what people like assume is cheesy, but actually it's got like more substance you might think. Like it's got more. I don't know. It's like not. It's just not that horrible. Like this is Double Vision. No, what is this album? 4. Weird. Okay, well, some trivia is that they had 6 members and then they reduced it to 4 members. So this album is called Four because they had only 4 members. And this is an album where they had the really famous song and a single, Jukebox Hero. It's like their anthem. 81, I think, as a single. That one was released on October 2nd because I'm reading this. But surprise, yeah, spoiler. I'm like reading these factoids. I don't know everything, guys. Some of these things I do know, but not all these dates necessarily. Um, I mean, in most cases, I'm reading the dates. Sometimes the albums I remembered like passively. Okay. Anyway, Foreigner. It's a C. Like I would put it on, but I wouldn't, expect much. Like I wouldn't like all the C albums are like, yeah, I'd listen to the full album, but like what I it's that it's American Girl was released in '76. Is that? But that's not Free Falling. I'm confusing the lyrics with the lyrics in Free Falling. So there's that. When was Free Falling? Because that's the one that's like I think he is actually really good. Uh, it's like '89. Okay, that's kind of impressive that he could pump out a song that's like as significant as Free Falling in '89. But it's a kind of a depressing song. It ties into the grunge theme. Um, this album though, his debut, '70s, just so late. But that was his style, man. That was always it's just sort of Johnny Come Lately. Um, sorry, I'm pouring my tea back into the kettle or whatever, the tea mug, teapot. I've had too much green tea for one night. It's 12:37 a.m., dude. It's like can't stay wired all fucking night. This album's like a D. American Girl's like at the level of Lagrange. It's like simplistic. And Tom Petty's career is a little like, dubious. I'm not really convinced he's like a soaring legend or whatever. He's kind of like, I mean, someone like Hendrix comes out of Electric Ladyland, and then you're trying to put him in the same fucking tier as some guy like Tom Petty who fucking does like American Girl and Mary Jane's Last Dance. It's just these sort of like predictable, formulaic, like semi ballads about heartland bullshit. It's like okay, I just yeah, I'm a little. It's a little like it's a little mundane, dude. Sorry. All right. Is that Purple Rain? Okay. Well, Purple Rain's another really good album. I mean, I don't want to put it in the C. I put it in B. I know. I mean, yeah, but now I'm thinking putting Bad Company in C. Because Bad Company's a little like. I mean, you're just trying to have integrity here and be honest. Is Bad Company really like? Well, Purple Rain. I mean, how could? Let's be honest about Purple Rain too. Like, Purple Rain is like, I mean, a lot of people really like Purple. slightly obscure Little Wing covers, I think I have somewhat of a bias against it. But this was my favorite album before I realized Electric Ladyland had so many powerhouse songs, tracks, you know. And this one is Axis Bold as Love. It's got a very good romantic quality. It's soulful. It's his most soulful album. But like a lot of things, just because it's unique doesn't mean it's amazing. Um, like Ziggy Stardust, it's a unique album, but it's sort of like it's sort of resting in its position. It doesn't really feel like it has enough punch. Uh, and I'm like a metalhead. I like things that have like serious edge. At least, like I don't like things that sort of just lounge about. Topically, right? So the topic of some of these B albums is sort of the reason why they're stuck in B. They don't really seem to have a lot of persuasion. There's an undecided quality to them. Now, Bad Company. I want to review Bad Company's track list because there might be something I'm missing. Shooting Star, Bad Company, Ready for Love. Oh wait, no, Shooting Star was in the next one. The problem with Bad Company is they could have had one great album, but they split it into two albums in 2 years, and so they kind of split all they had, which happens a lot in recording music in recording like the recording arts, right? Film. You see this in movies. A lot of like a director will make two films. Um, they're like way out of sequence. Like one will be like in the 80s, and then the other one will be in the 90s. And it's like if you made them like the same like 2 years, if you made them in like the same decade, people would hail you as like a legend. But because you made them like 10 years after each other, after one after another, it just seems sort of like this like some obscure he like stays remains in obscurity. Um, so I didn't realize Bad Company made like 10 albums. So that tells you something. That's a lot of albums. It's like Budgie. Like who cares about Budgie? I don't know. I know the singer just died. It's really sad. Shelburne, interesting personality. Handsome, so the music's really nice. Watch me play what 10 albums too. I mean that's kind of nuts that they make 10 albums. Like some of the bands feel like there's no passion. The band makes 10 albums. Like it's just like lame. But that company and Budgie aren't necessarily lame bands. So those are underacknowledged, underappreciated, underrated, perhaps. This bad company can't get enough. Moving on. Okay, I mean, next electric lighting, I think enough stuff on it. There's no ways. The Great for Love is great. Bad Company is probably one of my favorite songs by them. It's one of their biggest hits. It's a self-titled. It's called Bad Company. The album Bad Company by Bad Company, which is great. It's on the B side, but it's still like Black Sabbath when they really had their first album. It was Black Sabbath on Black Sabbath by What's Leslie? You got Leslie Monkey. Yeah, I think those are good where they are. I love the idea of rising being higher. The album outfit was kind of like, well, I think Dino's personality just did not fit what they were doing. And you can get out of the song like Stargazer Man Surround Me because they're sort of corny, or like they're sort of like Dio can his vocal and other stuff is like a little too much for Dio. Maybe could have done it better. It's not as divisive as it looks. Like Ricky Blackmore leaves Deep Purple, Horns Rainbow, and then he's making it's like he probably know he's Ronnie James Dio to do so that's operative and it's like what have they done? You know, it's like it's like late in the night, just like throwing my hands around, wall, it's sort of like not enjoying my life. And it's like music to accompany that experience. Just get fucking pissed drunk and like lose coordination. Jailbreak. Yeah, I mean that's I don't like that song. It's the boys are back in town. I mean maybe Cowboy song is what does it, but yeah. It's like it's like Anthrax. It's like they're all the same. It's like I don't really what have they done? I just don't I don't understand the appeal. Okay, Rage Against the Machine. Well, this one's gonna be easy. Never been a huge fan of Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, but Thin Lizzy is not D. Like it's tolerable. It's a good. They're good albums. They're just not good songs. But like that gets you somewhere. Making a good album can get it shows that making just writing a bunch of you know B minus material will make an album that's a C. I guess it should be a B minus, right? Okay, literally most of the lyrics are C. Some of them are B minus, and then so that gets you C. Um, the Battle of Los Angeles. Where's the one? Where's their first album? I think this is their first album, right? Yeah. Well, Evil Empire is I think the better one. It's not bad music. It's like punk, but like hip hop punk. I don't know. It sort of has a crossover quality that is probably the only reason it succeeded at all. Um, D. I'll give it an E. I think it's like filthy. I think it's like just like filth. Um, it's like it's not even rock music. Bulls on Parade is in the other one is in the follow up album. That's better for sure. But I thought this one, Killing in the Name, like I don't know. You're like, okay, I heard another. I guess it's like it's not. There's no milestone to listening to it, but you listen to it and you don't feel like you entirely wasted your time. So it's better than F. Um, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Red Hot Chili Peppers is a band that's like I'm surprised lasted as long as it did. Um, but they always have like they always have interesting songs, but it's like interesting in a bad way. Um, there's something grungy about RHCP that's like never acknowledged. Like they're not really like a traditional rock band. They're like post grunge, and it's like skateboarder music, but like maybe even too commercial for that. Um, definitely elementary school skateboarder music for sure. Okay, my phone died, so I can't do too much. What I'll do is I'll just look these up on the computer. Um, or you know what? I'll charge my phone and then just go with albums I know better to keep the pace of the video. Right? Just to keep pace. Um, what's time? What's the time? 220. Okay, so it's fucking long. I mean, I'd be surprised if anyone ever watches this. I hope they do. Really do. I hope someone watches this. But all right. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's just go back to the tier rank. Okay, that Red Hot Chili Peppers album, I forget the track list. So I'm gonna Deep Purple in rock. That's high ranked. I think it has Child in Time, Black Knight, um, Speed King. Probably a Speed King. Put an A. I put maybe S. I think it's like the low end of Desert Island, like a bit worse than the Van Halen self-titled. It's just like it somehow resonates with me, even though it's like on paper probably not even that successful. A lot of good things are like that though. Abbey Road. Okay, that's another one I just like. I don't want to have to revisit by googling. Um, Master of Reality is A S. Sorry, it's S. I mean, Sweet Leaf, NIB, right? I don't know. You have some. I would say it's A because I feel like it saturates quickly. It's not like Volume 4. I think Volume 4 is probably S. Then again, Master Reality used to be a real source of enjoyment, but no, I think it's A. AC/DC Highway to Hell. That's probably like B. Okay. Yeah, it's like the Inside Out. It's like an Inside Out version of Axis Bold Love. Aerosmith, Meatloaf. Okay, Meatloaf's just like D. Boston, D. This is hypocritical because in the earlier podcast I said Boston's way higher ranked than D, but an album is kind of agitating to hear again. Um, Burn, Irritants, Boston's and Irritants. Deep Purple's Burn. That's definitely like a B, I think. I mean, it's gotta be as good as Highway to Hell. Um, Cream, Disraeli Gears. It's also a B. A lot of B's right now. B is definitely like I just don't really give a fuck, so I'll just, be nice. Layla. Oh, this one, it's an A. I mean, that's kind of like Clapton's Electric Ladyland, in my view. It's like very powerful. Very in this album, Clapton does a better Little Wing than Jimi Hendrix does, and Jimi Hendrix did a great Little Wing, and he wrote the fucking song. So, just how it works. Maybe he probably disagreed just for the sake of fucking, self-effacement. Okay, I don't know what this is right now, so I'm not gonna do it. Is this Ziggy Stardust? What is this? This is Aladdin Sane or something? I don't know what that one is. Fuck. Dire Straits. Okay, this one has got a good tune on her too, but I think it's like a C album. Maybe B? I don't know. Yeah, it's like a C. Hunky Dory. Here's Hunky Dory, the one I said way too much information about. Um, yeah, yeah, Life on Mars is definitely like an A or S track. But the rest of the album is sort of like mid. So I'd say B. Uh, More Aerosmith. I just don't like. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna get too into like Toys in the Attic right now. Aqualung, Jethro Tull. This list isn't even alphabetical, so it doesn't even make sense. I would like take it so serious, take it like note by note or whatever. A. I mean, it's probably as good as Blizzard of Oz, right? Pink Floyd, The Wall. Yeah, that's a B. Hey, the Wall. Honestly, The Wall is better than that. There's something awesome. There's something just low key awesome about The Wall. So, don't know if it's A. It might be A. I really think it's actually that good somehow. Yeah, it could be. Could be. What's this? I think for many years I didn't like The Wall. I thought The Wall was kind of like, kind of mid or whatever. But as an album goes, this album, I listened to this full album just walking across Brooklyn once. I think it like changed my life or something. I'm giving it S. Uh, just a killer album, and not a ton of not a White Snake's, White Snake album. It wasn't even their. It's another one of those cases where like the debut album was something else. The sophomore album was something else. But then they decided to do a self-titled in like the third or fourth try, and it just worked. Okay, UFO, Strangers in the Night. I think that's a live album. But dude, that's one of the best live albums ever. Okay, that's an S. That's an amazing live album, and their music is already so fucking good. Can't believe they don't have their regular stuff on here. It's like studio work is astonishing. Maybe you have to just be in the mood for it. Like a lot of things. Paranoid, Sabbath, uh, Iron Man. Oh, Paranoid's War Pigs. I think War Pigs puts this up into A. Some of these Sabbath albums are not really S. They don't have like all. They're not like Zeppelin who have like all their albums are S. Their albums are all like A. Except for like a couple that are like S. But like I don't know. That's just sort of like you know back of mind opinion that I've been hiding all these years from myself and others. Red, yes, roundabout. This one have okay. I'm gonna defer for a moment because it might have Owner of a Lonely Heart on it, which would promote it a letter grade. Led Zeppelin 4 is F. No, Led Zeppelin 4 is like. It's funny that I put it there because it shows you how like subconscious my irony is. Yeah, it's the best album I think I've ever heard. But it's like again, it's like everyone's best album. It's almost like it's not even personal. It's like sad. It's just um, Led Zeppelin 4 is weirdly like it's like what Abbey Road looks is supposed to be. Led Zeppelin 4 is like the real version. I guess that's like everything. Yeah. So fake version of things is a real version of things. You know, and the fake parts change more than the real parts do. See, that's the crazy thing. Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. Oh, dude, I just don't know the track list entirely. I love the Beach Boys. I don't know if this album is like A or S. It's like one of those like micro distinctions. The subtle, like overly subtle and mostly pointless, but somehow still necessary to me, to others, to enough people that okay. Dude, I don't know every song. Fuck. This shows you how my actual knowledge of the track list. Oh, okay, this one, yeah, this one's weird because this one, like I'm saying, it's like the best Stones album, I think, but it's like kind of out of their box in a way. It's like got a weird cover, provocative sexually. Then it has a bunch of really cool songs, 70s. What they did right is they got Mick Taylor into like write the guitar sort of parts, and Keith Richards can do good riffs, but he can't do good riffs that like are long. He does riffs that are kind of like bursts, and the repetitious they hook you. But this one with Mick Taylor's guitar playing, it's his guitar playing's more I don't know, it's more jangly. I don't know. I feel like everything I'm saying I'm just talking about this dude's dick, but whatever. I wonder whose dick that was if it's even real. You know, it's not obvious. Uh, you'd think Mick Jagger because that's just the persona, but who knows? Could be anyone. Oh, dude, what's this one? Is that Blue Oyster Cult? I love that album cover. Love. Oh, this is funny. This is like the opposite. Weird. See, weird these things are. This is like, I mean, I'm pretty sure he fucking copied this. You know, this is no way. This album came like 5 years, 10 years later. Look at this. It's like the same thing. It's so obvious, and I fucking hate it. I hate I hate Bruce Springsteen. I mean, it's like it's almost dog shit. Um, D. It's not D though. I mean, it was Born in the USA. I like that one, so I'll give it a C. Yeah, I like that one more. But it's like funny. It's like, well, he's doing this thing where he's showing you his backside when there's like nothing to see. I mean, that's already like weird. But the fact he's copying the Stones doing that, and I believe me, if you grew up during this era, you're gonna know that he's copying him. So it's like it's really kind of stupid that he would just rip off one of the most successful albums ever. You just rip it off and then, oh yeah, I'm also really successful, man. Look at my like weird. It's like it's like so unoriginal, and it's not even an homage. I don't know. Maybe people think Bruce Springsteen is like some kind of player. I don't know. It's like gay or something. Mm. And I mean literally like in the closet gay. I don't mean like disparaging someone's character or something just by using the word gay. I mean literally, I think he might be in the closet. That's why I said that. Um, just to qualify my statements ad nauseum. Okay. Anyway, we got Genesis. Okay, dude, see, I don't know which one that is though. I don't think it's the one I would want it to be. Uh, I forget how potty mouth the fucking Rolling Stones are. Like this one has this fucking schlong, and then this one has like the fucking toilet. Didn't re- didn't realize they were that kind of they're that fucking. They're funny, man. And they're not even a punk band. It tells you that they have an interesting character, and they always have. Um, this is like the best band ever too, and they have these like super provocative album covers. It's kind of weird. I didn't. I'm like surprised to like acknowledge it or to observe it or whatever. Okay, the Who one we haven't talked about it at all, which is shameful. And this is Tommy, or I think yeah, it's Tommy. Tommy's good. Tommy's A. This this is S. Who is like I'm surprised a guy named Pete could even be involved in a band that like made music this good. I mean, I guess Led Zeppelin, you have Peter Grant as their manager, but you wouldn't think that that would be so correlated or causative. I suppose one of them. All right, I think I can go to sleep in a sec. Cheap Trick at Budokan. Yeah, good. Another phenomenal live album. Certainly an S. Just top to bottom, amazing live performance. I mean, maybe A because it's like a sneaking live album. So yeah, I'll put an A, but it's cool. It's pretty cool. Megadeth, Iron Maiden. This one just have the same cover art. That's another case. It's like annoys me a little. But I think those are closer in time. I'll have to look into it. The Doors. Okay, this one is a really good Rush album. Moving Pictures. S. I'm like being generous right now. I don't think it's S. I think it's A. You know, British Steel. I forget what's on British Steel. It's like Electric Eye and Painkiller. Yeah, I forget what's really on it. Pearl Jam. Oh, this is. I think Pearl Jam might be one of those bands that only had like one good album, and their one good album is like S tier. Yeah, so probably the best '90s album. Which is like kind of a you know, I just occurred to me that's like the best one, but I think passively it's always been true. Nirvana, Nevermind. I give this one A. I think it kind of fails um to deliver an expected feeling, and that snubs it from the Oscar win or whatever. But it's like nominated and a serious contender at that. Ramones. Okay, these are all things I'm like I don't even care to like review. I just feel over them. Another Thin Lizzy one. Probably one that maybe this is probably a Thin Lizzy album that's better than Jailbreak, and it's just like their underground album, like the one that you go for if you're like tired of the hits and you want to hear some album that's you can do it all, but just no one ever plays it on the radio. No one ever has it in their house, but it's just been there for decades. It's not longer, not centuries. Okay, that's the album of 1,000 years. Live and Dangerous. Oh, it's a fucking live album. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah. That was a studio. Revolver. I think Revolver might be one of the superior Beatles albums. I mean, any musician who names their album after like a weapon is kind of doing something right because a weapon kills. And as a musician or comedian or performing artist, you want to kill. Dancer, filmmaker, um, conductor. I don't know any of them. Whatever. What's a poet? A beat poet? A slamming beat poet? The slamming beat? Whacking the whack-a-mole on the drum? Anyway, okay, whatever. I don't want to start going on a tirade about the poetics of New York City late in the night. Um, the beat and the bop and the boop and the deep. Whoppity whip whip wop wop reap. Okay, I'm not gonna put an S though. Just put an B because I know it's got some good stuff. Abbey Road. What is on Abbey Road? Penny Lane? No, no, I can't remember. Okay. I'll say Pet Sounds is a B. The Beach Boys, it's like album by album. I think they're a little like they kind of thinned out at the end for me. Like where their music became like the Beatles. It just became too like celestial and kaleidoscopic and like madman raving around the library. Ripping out pages and scribbling down like upside down letters. It got a little like Like, okay, this isn't a chemistry lab where you can just blow shit up and then it'll be cool no matter what. Like, there has to be some cohesion. I think that was like the problem with the whole psych pop, psych rock. It's just it was all over the place, but it was clearly an organized chaos. I think they were just a little too into like Indian music at the time. Like, yeah, you can do that in Indian music, but it's India. You know, that's what they do. That's all they do. For Britain, for like California and Great Britain to do it, it's like it becomes sort of a fad, a passing fancy. Anyway, skip bop ba doop lop doop roop shoop roop. Yeah, the fact that I'm doing automatopoeia at like over 1 in the morning. Um, okay, computer. Yeah, that's see, these are getting into like the fucking fringes for me. Master Puppets. Dark Side. Well, it looks white on my screen because the colors are all inverted, across the visual spectrum or whatever. So I'm considering putting an A because it almost feels like there's filler in it. Looking back, it almost feels like Money was kind of a weird song that was out of it was funny, sort of out of line with the theme. It kind of worked. Then, Great Gig in the Sky was a little too wild. Time is good, what's the Any Color You'd Like, I think, and Eclipse, Brain Damage. Those are kind of like they're kind of just there to help smooth out the album. But that whole album sort of feels like it's doesn't really like it kind of like it's kind of like stop and go when you listen to it. You're like, oh, it's like whoop, 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 whoop. It's like ambient whoop, whoop, electronic sounds, and then there's not, and then there's like someone yelling, and then there's not, and it doesn't really like always produce a significant feeling. But it has this like reputation for doing this. This album is entirely based off some poor lad who went to the dentist and was given way too much nitrous oxide, and they just tripped balls for like 10 minutes during like oral surgery. I mean, it's like it's very much pseudo profound. A lot of like often, for some significant portion of the time. So it has a demerit to it. Like, there is a demerit to it. It's a little bit like how Led Zeppelin has like a kind of like a white supremacist sort of quality to it, low key, but we just sort of brush it under the rug because I'm white. I don't really care. But there is kind of this like whitiness to it. It's like overbearing a bit. Um, but I think that's like at least like kind of relatable. Whereas Dark Side of the Moon is like, I mean, I like that it's space age. I guess maybe it's more of like a globalized version of Zeppelin, where Lord Zeppelin's culture, Dark Side is science in their respective atmospheres and environments and sweeping the city streets. But I'm gonna put an A because I think it's got like it's got something dubious about it. I could always change my mind, but A is pretty high. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna stop there for now. I just my phone. I'm gonna go to bed. I mean, I could do more, but I want to sleep on it and see if I end up rearranging all these in the morning because that might be for the best. And you already have a record of what it looks like now. Only one Judas Priest album. It's kind of crazy. Whoever made this album compilation or whatever, this composite of different albums, kind of an idiot a bit. Exile on Main Street. Okay, well that's gonna be high. most of these will be a spoiler to you right now. Most of these will be higher than average. Most of them. Unless I just don't like the band. But I think I like all these bands. Oh wait, no, I don't. Never mind. I'm gonna go to bed. I'll catch you later. You won't notice because I'll just start off immediately where I left off. But I'll catch you later. I'm gonna sleep for several hours right now. Okay. All right. Take it easy, peeps.